Well, I just want to talk a little bit about our topic, which is about bishops, dioceses, and congregations leading in mission together. And it's a bit deceptive because I'm really going to talk a lot about bishops and the role that I believe that bishops play in mission. And so I want to just play this video here for you. This is a short video of Archbishop Paul Yugasuk of the South Sudan, who leads 12 dioceses, and his bishops doing mission work, crossing by foot over a stream into areas that are not yet evangelized within the South Sudan. And I remember when I came to my first Wineskins, I heard a story that absolutely convicted me, which was of a bishop in the Sudan, like Archbishop Paul, who had just been consecrated, sent with one or two catechists, disappeared for approximately 2 years. No one heard anything. They thought he'd been killed in the civil wars. He resurfaced shortly before the new Wineskins, and he had 25,000 new converts who were meeting at night for confirmation, because that was the only safe place where they could actually meet and not be bombed by the Antonevs that were coming across into the Nuba Mountains. So, on the other hand, this is a picture of one of the last prince bishops in the Diocese of Los Angeles Episcopal Church, Bishop Robert Rusak. We had a wonderful beach ministry that my dad started, invited a priest to come and rent a duplex right on Newport Beach, on the beach, near the pier, that reached out to kids who were on drugs, who were runaways, and who were lost. And I remember Bishop Rusak, I had the honor of taking him to the Newport Harbor Yacht Club for the parish dinner afterwards, after confirmation, and I was telling him, as a 15-year-old, all the wonderful things that were happening at this beach ministry in Newport Beach, people coming to Jesus. And he turned to me as we were driving over there and said, this sounds really interesting. Maybe I should send some of my seminarians out to take a look at this. And I said, oh no, Bishop, we don't need seminarians. We need Jesus people. Now, I told that later to my parents, who turned sheet white, and but I have to say I came by that honestly, because as a friend of mine wrote in a book, actually an essay he wrote on the episcopacy, Justin Howard, Canon Justin Howard from Anglican Diocese of New England, that we have a truncated view of the episcopacy as being principally administrative or pastoral. And it wasn't always this way. Before Christendom, the Celtic model of evangelism through Columba and Patrick, if you look at on the right, the Celtic way was the bishop was primarily a missional office launched from community, a monastic community, to be liberally multiplied and sent forth seeking to break into new territory, exemplifying and equipping God's people to proclaim and demonstrate the coming kingdom for the sake of the world. That's how the Celts, like Patrick and Columba and others, actually evangelized the Picts and the Irish. Well, around 664 they had a synod, and actually even before that, this guy on the left, Augustine of Canterbury, also a monastic, was sent with a very different assignment, which was to go and evangelize, but do it in the Roman way, which was to set up dioceses, churches, cathedrals, and in particular because the Vikings had come into northern parts of England and disrupted the organization that the Celts had or did not have. Rome came in and said, well, we need to organize this and make some sense out of it. And that became a model of understanding the episcopacy, at least as Anglicans, as inheritors of the Church of England tradition, which found its final decision in 664 in a synod, and pardon all this history, where the Celts and the Romans came head to head, and the Romans prevailed. And that form of episcopacy has largely been carried on through the Church of England into America. Kind of the administrative pastoral side. Now, I want to suggest that the actual model is of Paul, the first missionary bishop. And if you think about Paul, he was a person who laid down his life for the flock. Look sometime at his letters in 1 Corinthians 12 and 2 Corinthians 4 about the burden he carried for the churches and all that he went through and the sacrifices that he made. He did that for the sake, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so his letter in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for salvation. He was leading with the dunamis, that is the power, and the charismata, the gifts or graces of the Holy Spirit. And so he said in his letter to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 2:4, my message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power. Linking churches together. Well, if you're a student of the New Testament, you realize that's what Paul's letters were all about, linking the churches together for the sake of mission. And he did that with ever-expanding vision. Think about the prayer that he prayed. And let me just read this to you. His prayer in Ephesians chapter 3. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, and that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all God's people. Better together, right? Together with all God's people to grasp how wide and how long and how high and how deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. The heart of the missionary bishop in that prayer, and reproducing missionary leaders. And so what does Paul do when he passes the baton to Timothy? In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 5, he says, do the work of an evangelist. Keep your head in all situations. Discharge the duties of your ministry. Now, we have Anglican bishops today who are recovering the Pauline missionary fullness of the episcopacy. And so, Bishop James Hannington, who died on the border, literally the border of where he was going to come in and do mission work in East Africa, and laid down his life, and through his blood shed, that began an extraordinary revival in East Africa. But that's also Archbishop Janani Luwum, who just maybe 100 years later did the same thing, as we heard about from Canon Moses last night. And that began, his life laid down, began an extraordinary revival for Uganda. We have bishops who are doing this for the sake of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Bishop Festo Kavengeri, who is a wonderful preacher and teacher and evangelist, and unrelenting in the preaching of the gospel. But don't we have that today also with Archbishop Ben Kwashi in Jos, Nigeria, who's all about proclaiming Christ to all the nations and taking GAFCON and making it a missionary movement with bishops who are missionaries going out and proclaiming the gospel to all the world. We have Anglican bishops today who are leading with dunamis, with the power of the Holy Spirit, and with charismata, with the gifts of the Holy Spirit. That's a picture of Archbishop Miguel Uchoa of the new Anglican Church in Brazil. And listen sometime to his testimony about how, when he was pastor of the church in Recife, that he went to the slums around the church and prayer walked in the power and in the prayers of the Holy Spirit, and was led to talk to people. Some of them were drug dealers. Some of them were gang leaders. Some of them were very violent. Others were just parents. and he stopped on street corners against the advice of the people who saw him walking there with his collar on and with his wife. And even though they were praying with people, it was still a very dangerous thing. But under the power of the Spirit, he prayer walked all those slums. And then he asked the people, what is it that you need? And they said, you know what we really need? We're all working our tails off at 4 or 5 jobs. Our kids are left at home, and they don't know what to do, and they're getting in trouble. What we really need, if you're serious about reaching our community, is a community center. And so he raised millions of dollars to do the House of Hope in Recife that has indoor soccer fields and testimonies of kids who are saying, I'm alive today because of this ministry. And this was a Spirit-led leader operating in the power and the gifts of the Holy Spirit who discovered this and was led to do this. We have bishops who are linking churches together. That's a picture of Bishop Renis Panaya of the Diocese of Singapore. What does he do? Another Spirit-filled evangelist and teacher who's linked the churches of Singapore and their indigenous communities, as well as churches and mission agencies in the West, through the Singapore Roundtable, to planting new Anglican churches and provinces in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Nepal. Like Paul, the missionary bishop, with ever-expanding vision for mission. That's a picture of Bishop Alfred Olwa.
It went away. I'll have to get it from later. Sorry.
Okay. It's a wonderful picture. If you can see it, so we'll portray it again. But Alfred Olwa with a hoe and a Bible in his hand. Okay? Here's a guy in one of the poorest dioceses in northern Uganda. And he's got incredible arable land that the people don't know how to cultivate yet, and they don't have hippos that are willing to come out and eat all the tomatoes. Okay? So it really could be, cultivated in ways that would bring income and sustainability. He's got a vision for that, but not just for Lango Diocese, for moving into the South Sudan, moving northward. I talked with him last night. We shared about a mission we're having to South Sudan in March, where we're going to take theological education for free to Archbishop Yugasuk, his 12 bishops, his clergy, Mothers Union representatives, lay evangelists, lay catechists, clergy who will never go to seminary, and teach them the basics of the Christian faith. And I thought, as I was talking with my brother, you have this great vision to reach into South Sudan. Would you come with me? And would you teach the Anglican specific things that Third Mill, the group we're partnering with, can't do? And he said, yes, I will come with you. So this is a missionary bishop. And then we've got reproducing missionary leaders. This was my bishop in Uganda for 5 years, Bishop Benazarian Canon Lovey Kasembo in the Diocese of Rwenzori. And I've told the story about how I came to them. I thought I was pretty hot stuff, being from the Episcopal Diocese of Virginia when I left, the first church to leave the diocese. I figured we had 200 congregations, and so surely I went to my bishop, Benazari, and said, so am I now your 201st congregation? He said, no, actually, I think you're my 827th. Bishop, you must have some other bishop. In Virginia, we had 3 bishops. Do you have assisting bishops? He said, no, I'm the only one. Well, how many clergy do you have? To cover 827 churches. I have 120. Each clergy person is raising up lay leaders, lay catechists, lay evangelists, because each clergy is not only in charge of his own congregation, but 8 to 10 congregations that are led, hundreds of people, by lay people. And so this man, I went on a confirmation visit with him, and he was reported in the press once as telling a confirmation class that he went to. He wouldn't confirm them because he would always go and examine them and see if they were ready. And he determined in examining them that they weren't ready because he was serious about raising up missional leaders. And I was there when he talked to people, and he was a very good teacher and interrogator. He went up to the kids and said, what's your name? Well, my name is Dorcas. Tell me about Dorcas in the Bible. And you see, he was all about raising up and multiplying missionary leaders. So that's what we do. How then can we continue to recover this Pauline missional leadership model of bishops? And so I want to show this. Some of you have seen this already, so please forgive us if you've seen it before. If you haven't seen it, this is what we are doing in order to help further this new missionary model of the bishop.
I'm Bishop Alfred Olua from the Diocese of Lango in Uganda.
I'm Bishop Bill Murdoch, the Bishop of the Anglican Diocese in New England.
I'm Nestor Ruaje, Archbishop from the Anglican Church of Rwanda.
I'm Trevor Walters. I'm the Bishop in Canada.
I'm Bishop Paul Yugusuk from the Episcopal Church of South Sudan.
There is a saying in Africa that if you want to walk far, you walk together. But if you want to walk fast, walk alone. For me, I want to walk far in the gospel work, and one way to do that is to walk together with my fellow brothers from all over the world.
The idea, the vision, is to bring leaders together from different parts of the world to form partnerships between their dioceses, between those bishops, between the clergy, and even the people that will bring just a new life and health to the whole of the Anglican communion.
The bishops are the pastors of the pastors and the shepherds of all of the flocks, and really do establish the direction and the strength of the church as a whole from a human perspective.
I thank the Lord for.
So, in the interest of time, I'm not going to show the whole thing, but you get the picture. This is what we do. And I have a document here. It's a covenant. And we have our bishops sign a covenant together. You know, bishops from ACNA, bishops from Global South and GAFCON. And we say in these different areas of ministry that the relationships that you build at this summit, mission's going to overflow from that. And you're going to have a shared confession of faith that we all agree on, which is the fundamental declarations of this covenant. You're going to have a relationship with each other. You're going to make a commitment to meet with each other by phone, WhatsApp, video, so you keep that relationship fresh. Your dioceses are going to have certain missional commitments, and those are going to be in the areas of evangelism, discipleship, economic sustainability, and community development, and worship and prayer. All of these kinds of relational commitments. Now, some bishops here are going to recognize that language because it's taking bits and pieces from work that we're doing at a larger global level and boiling it down to about 5 pages so that we can do this and build these relationships from the ground up, diocese to diocese, bishop to bishop. So I just want to pause there, and your reflections, questions, is about recovering the bishop. Really, the bottom line, recovering the bishop, getting the bishops to knit congregations together. And let me just say that one congregation here in the United States can make an enormous difference in a whole diocese overseas. And so we're asking our bishops to make multiple partnerships in the ACNA to further the mission all over the world and to build up a network of biblically faithful dioceses and bishops from the ground up that are in full communion with each other and in full mission, better together. Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Bishop Marcus. I'm good from Nigeria. This is my wife. I must confess, I'm so glad I attended this talk in this group. I just saw it. My wife attended one on something together, and I was there on partnership. And I just said, look, I need to look for this one, and I came here. And I tell her also to come down here. Now, I've heard what you said when you started about bishops or church leaders who really move in the power of the Holy Spirit and do so many great things. from the time of the Romans to England to where we are today. Then you also ask a question that there are bishops who are working together for the common purpose of the mission. And I also intended you ask a question that are we still going to have bishops that will continue working together? Now, this is my question here. There are a lot of things that are entangling the church, particularly the Anglican church. Some of them cultural, some of them theological issues, some of them ideologies, or whatever they are. And I see them actually pulling us together apart. Like, I am in the north central part of Nigeria,
Yes.
which is mostly Islamic dominated.
Yes.
I'm just about 40-kilometer drive away from Bishop Ashey.
Yes.
I know him very well, work together. Now, in my diocese, I have 122 congregations,
Wow.
church.
Yeah.
I have 62 parishes. I have 29 deaneries, and I have 12 archdeaconries.
Wow.
Now, we came in here, we've been there, Bishop, for about 8 years. And we have suffered a lot of attacks. A lot of attacks from this Islamic insurgency that started with Boko Haram from the north,
Yes.
and is coming downward. Then our area is mostly Christian dominated. And Islam is doing everything possible to penetrate through there and water the kind of Christianity we're doing together there. But thank God that in the Church of Nigeria is big actually, because Nigeria has about 164 dioceses. We have about 22 to 23 million Anglicans in Nigeria. Yes, out of the 170 million population of this thing. Anglican is one of the leading church in Nigeria. In fact, the leading church. But in recent time, we've seen a lot of these problems that you mentioned, or I'm trying to mention, that is putting us apart.
Mm-hmm.
We were in a very strong communion with England, with churches in America, but those things are not like they are today.
Yeah.
You talk about the program you're going to do in Sudan. What did I just came about? Wow, will I be able to go to Sudan and sit down and hear you talk about this issue in Sudan? That was just what came to my mind. Because I don't know whether it is possible for me to do things like that in Nigeria. Now, what do we do? Or what do you say in terms of trying to address these cultural, traditional, theological, ideological issues that are actually not the main issue, because persecution in Nigeria is stronger than whatever ideology culture is talking about, because every day we're coming to reality. Just 29th of August, about 3 weeks ago, a church of mine was attacked, 7 people were killed, all their houses burned, the churches are burned, and this is the time for heavy rainfall in Nigeria. So where are those people running to when they burn down their houses? So when you begin to talk about ideologies, culture, it's not making meaning to them.
Mm-hmm.
For me as bishop, I may be concerned about it, but the people I'm leading have greater issues in their hand. So what would you say to address these unnecessary issues that are taking away the main thing that we're supposed to focus on? I don't know whether you understand.
Yeah. So the issues that divide us in the communion,
Yes.
okay, we seek to address in this covenant by saying, here are the things that we agree on. And things like the Jerusalem Declaration,
Yes.
the things that you would say in the Constitution and canons of Nigeria, Book of Common Prayer, the Bible, the creeds, all of the basics that hold us together as confessing Anglicans. And furthermore, we talk very strongly in this about the importance of reading the Bible plainly in its plain and grammatical sense and being under the authority of the Bible. And we say this is the basis for our relationship as bishops and as dioceses, and on the basis of that, we are going to learn from each other. You have something to give to, let's say, an American bishop here because you're facing persecution. And so your understanding as a bishop in Nigeria of what real faith is going to speak to an American bishop whose people are just beginning to face the kinds of attacks by government and religious liberties and in other ways that they are not prepared for. And it may be that a team from this diocese and this bishop could come and be there to stand with you in the middle of that and to help build temporary shelters for the people whose houses have been burned. So that's how we are going to try and focus, is to say, let's move forward in mission together, but let's stand for the faith once delivered to the saints together. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. We want you next year at our summit. So we will talk. Yes, we must talk.
Yes.
All right. Other questions or comments?
You want to elaborate on how this will come down to the congregational level?
Yeah. So here's the way it would work. So a bishop will partner with another bishop. From our Bishops' Leadership Summit, one of our ACNA bishops may take the bishop he's partnered with to his diocese and to his synod. And at that synod, he will meet with the clergy, he will meet with the lay people, they will meet together, they will do mission together in that diocese before the bishop goes home. They may even do laying on of hands for ordaining clergy together. They will celebrate communion together as a sign of that communion that we're doing. And then they will make a date for the American bishop to go overseas, and if he was partnering with you, to come to your synod, your diocesan synod, and meet with your clergy and your mother's union, okay? And do mission together, teaching mission, healing mission, prayer mission, deliverance mission, whatever it might be. And in the process of you coming, our overseas bishop coming to the United States and visiting the various churches in the diocese, we believe there will be at least one or two or maybe three churches that say, we have fallen in love with the bishop from Nigeria. And we want to support that bishop. And may we go ahead and send a mission team next year to his diocese. And the clergy will come with the people. And maybe you will say, well, we would like to send some people, to your diocese, American bishop, and do ministry with you and your people. So that this gets down to the congregational level. And rather than worrying about, we try to allow the Holy Spirit to really move and direct these partnerships. We create a framework for it, but we allow the Holy Spirit within that framework to knit people together for ministry.